March 13, 1931, just 4 years after Charles Lindbergh's epic flight. San Diegan Theodore Gildred Sr. takes off from San Diego's Lindbergh Field in a Ryan B-5 Brougham named the Ecuador on an epic flight to South America. In 1931, there were few navigation aids, virtually no weather reporting, making it a very dangerous 18-day journey. On the 4,200-mile flight, Gildred visited with heads of state, dignitaries, and business leaders at 13 stops, opening lines of communication and goodwill between the people of San Diego, the United States, and each country and city where he landed. Finally arriving in Quito, Ecuador, Gildred was greeted by an enthusiastic crowd, including the country's president. Gildred was so moved by the enthusiastic reception, he ended up teaching 2 Ecuadorians how to fly, arranged to lead the plane for them, and helped set up the first airmail service in Ecuador.
In 1931, Dad had very little to go by. He had really no navigational instruments, so most of it had to be done visually, following railroad tracks, following roads, and the fact that he made it to Quito was pretty amazing.
50 years later, the history-making flight was recreated by Gildred's son, Ted II, in a 1942 Stinson Reliant from the San Diego Aerospace Museum. Duplicating his father's timing and route exactly, Ted landed his Ecuador II airplane in Quito on March 31st at precisely 10:52 a.m. The 40-year-old vintage plane was donated by the San Diego Aerospace Museum to Quito, along with a $30,000 gift from Gildred to start their first aviation museum. The adventurous pilot would eventually become ambassador to Argentina. The flight legacy of the Gildreds will be continued on the 75th anniversary of the 1931 flight, when Ambassador Gildred, who remains an avid pilot, will be accompanied by his sons Ted III and Stephen as they recreate the famous flight in March 2006.
There's going to be a lot more diplomacy. When my grandfather did this flight, it was sort of one man's mission. Now what we're doing is much greater than one person. It's really trying to bring countries together. When my dad in 1981 did the 50th anniversary of my grandfather's flight, I was about the same age that Stephen is now.
I'm 17 years old, so I'm just beginning to realize how significant this could be.
Now, 25 years later that we're doing the 75th anniversary of the flight, Stephen is the age that I was. I'm about the age that my dad was. And then when we do the 100th anniversary of the flight, I will be the same age that my dad is now, and Stephen will be my age.
25 years from now, when the 100th anniversary takes place, we'll be there and reestablish contacts again and again, creating a legacy of goodwill.
I understand that it will be upon my shoulders to recreate this legacy at the 100th anniversary when I'm 43 years old. This is definitely something that I want to do. In 2031, the time's going to be different, the people are going to be new, even the plane's going to be different.
Ecuador 3 is a prime opportunity to reconnect with the new generation of leaders in Latin America. The flight in 2006, supported by the San Diego Aerospace Museum and the Institute of the Americas, will generate widespread positive publicity, renewed understanding, and trust, just like the flights in 1931 and 1981.
I felt on the original flight that my dad was with me, flying next to me, and I'm sure that when we come into Quito, I'll have that same feeling of my dad being right next to me, and probably this time tears pouring down my eyes like they did last time. More important than aviation is the fact that we are establishing and reestablishing connections with Latin America and creating goodwill, which is so important.
At a time when positive international relations are needed more than ever, the journey of Ecuador 3 and the Gildreds continue the legacy of goodwill, building new bridges into the 21st century.